And then fall ups and moves to some remote farmhouse in Scotland. Like, I don't think Paul would have ever done that. Like, he bought the farmhouse, but he bought it kind of like as a tax write-off thing, and like maybe he'd go up on vacation once in a while. But he loved London. He loved being in the city. He loved going to the plays and just being in the thick of everything, you know. So to go off to some remote place, but you know, it makes sense if it's fall because you know you get him out of everybody's. Nobody sees him anymore, and it's easier to pull off the charade.
Get him away from the close scrutiny of people who knew him. Now that brings up the question: have you ever uncovered in your research close personal friends of the original Paul McCartney that were suspicious later on in life or in the career of Fall?
Who talked about? Oh, okay. Well, I mean, Mal Evans knew, obviously, and Mal Evans was their roadie for 10 years.
Yeah, explain that story. So, and it's Mal, M-A-L, basically his first name?
Yeah, Malcolm Evans was his name.
Okay. And he was working with he was working with the Beatles before they came to America. Is that what it was?
Yeah, he started like in '63 working with them, and so he was working with them for a long time. And then he helped Fall write Sgt. Pepper in Fixing a Hole.
Oh my gosh!
And I mean, it's just kind of funny because it's like Paul was writing these massive hits just all by himself, and then Fall like needs everybody to help him, like even the roadie. He's trying to get, you know, he's trying to get like George Harrison to write with him after, you know, when he was solo, and George's like, I don't want to write with him. He ran out of good songs of his own, which you know is like a big clue. Like he ran out of Paul's songs because they probably did use Paul's material until they ran out. But anyway, so now Evans, he comes to LA in 75-ish, and he's writing a book called Living the Beatles Legend, a tell-all autobiography of everything like he knew. And so in January of 76, he gets shot to death by LA police. And it seems that he knew something was going to go down because he told his collaborator on the book, John Herney, to make sure the book got published if something happened to him. He told him that night. The girlfriend seems to be some sort of honey trap who set him up to say, he's waving a rifle around. So the police come and shoot him. The book he was working on went missing. The suitcase full of memorabilia, Beatles memorabilia, went missing. And then Mal Evans' ashes went missing when they went back to London, or went back to England. The book was published, heavily redacted, so we don't know exactly what he was going to reveal, but we can speculate.
Yeah, right.
And then Heather Mills, too, was another one who freaked. Like in 2007, she's like, I've left you, protect me, and I'll say nothing. Something so awful happened, and people don't want to know the truth. And, she was betrayed immensely, and not by infidelity or anything. But, I mean, she came so close to spilling the beans, but she was getting death threats. And, she had a daughter to worry about, and it seems she took the money and just took the hush money, basically. But you go back and you watch what she said. Like, she has a box full of evidence that she gave to someone in case something happened to her, that the truth would come out. She's like, there's such fear of the truth coming out from a certain party. It's like, well, what do you think it is? Come on.
Yeah.
So, and that's in my book, too, like, just...
Yeah. Well, let's explain to the listeners that might not know who Heather Mills was.
Oh,
and how she was related to Paul.
Yeah, she's the second wife of Paul McCartney, and it seems she found out he was not the real deal. I mean,
Got it.
who wants to be married to an imposter? Like, that doesn't have the same, ring to it as the original Beatle Paul. It's like, it's a cheesy lame imposter, and I didn't sign up for that.
So in other words, she married Paul McCartney thinking he was the original Paul, and might have found out otherwise during her marriage, and then was threatening to come out with the information, and all of a sudden, she runs up of this huge campaign to shut her down then.
That's right. Oh, and the media in England was just merciless, like saying, oh, she's gold digger, and she's just like the worst person in the world. And I think it was to discredit her in case she did say something that nobody would believe her. Like, they just total smear campaigning against her. But I think she had integrity. She wasn't willing to go along with it. She was like, oh, I ain't got no time for that.
Well, it sounds like, and it's probably a miracle that she wasn't snuffed out at that point. It's kind of a testimony to her grit, I suppose, that she survived all of that.
Or being clever. She sent a box of evidence to somebody, like probably a lawyer, But, Brian Epstein, and Brian Epstein was their manager, and he overdosed in 1967. But he became seriously depressed at that, after the concert when they came back from the U.S. tour at the end of August 1966. And he was seriously depressed, and then he overdosed. We're not sure if it's suicide. He suicided. It was an accident, but in my opinion, Brian Epstein actually really cared about the Beatles, and he wasn't willing to go along with it. I told you on our show before that they were in that last tour the Beatles were on. They were actually in serious danger. Like, the whole tour was bad news. And Brian Epstein wanted to get them out of playing Memphis because they really thought the Beatles were going to get shot on stage. And
let's explain briefly why that was and what the major event happened to give the threatening aspect to their career at that point. Tell them what happened.
Okay, well, I mean, it was bad in the Philippines. It was bad in Japan when they played. But the main bad thing that happened was John Lennon said that they were bigger than Jesus, which people didn't take too kindly to. So there were all sorts. I mean, they were getting death threats from the Deep South, and KKK, for example, was sending death threats. And I mean, apparently their plane actually got shot when they were landing in Memphis. I mean, they were actually in real danger. So and so Brian Epstein was trying to get him out of playing Memphis, and he's like asking their attorney, like, well, what will it take? And the attorney's like, you'd have to pay $1 million to get them out. He's like, I'll pay it. I don't care. I'll pay it. I couldn't live with myself if anything happened to these guys. But the Beatles, especially Paul, they were like, no, the show must go on. So they played. But there was like a firecracker or something that went off, and they all looked at John like, did he just get shot? Like, I mean, they expected him to go down. They weren't. It was like no joke. Like, at that point, it was a really dangerous situation. So, like, in my opinion, this whole thing was probably used as a cover for what really happened. Because if it had been found out, they could have said, oh, KKK did it, because they were mad about the bigger than Jesus statement. But you have to remember that there's been 50 years of media manipulation since then. Does the KKK have that ability or the clout? No. So it has to be really high up the chain to be able to control the media on this.
Oh, yeah. You would think so, especially with the longevity, like you're mentioning, of this cover-up. This, like I said, this is the longest cover-up that I've heard of, even beyond what's going on here in the JFK thing. Is even coming out now. Some of the information on that, but you are basically leading the charge here, from what I can gather, on the whole idea of this historical figure, Paul McCartney, being either killed or imposter replaced in 1966. This is how does it feel for you to be on this cutting edge in this subject? Do you have detractors out there that give you a hard time in this regard?
Oh, haters gonna hate. You know how it is. Well, I mean, this is like a war of light versus dark, the good versus the evil. Like, this is a really, to me, this is a really big, like, on cosmic battlefield that we're on. I know it doesn't seem like it, but it's like, if you think about, well, okay, first of all, Paul is important because he's exposing the larger agenda of imposter replacement.
Yes.
Which has been a tool, a political tool for centuries. But of course, the controllers, the ruling elite, do not want people to know about it. So they always make fun of people who say, oh, there's an imposter. But it's like, it's proven that he's an imposter. Like, how many physical differences do you need, really? Like, it's ridiculous at some point. So he's exposing that larger agenda. But also, there's this, the good versus evil agenda, because the Beatles were light and love, and they were raising frequencies through music. And I think that was another reason why they had to be stamped out. Because the music, they don't want music to be good vibrations. They want it to be unhealthy. They want it to be for mind control. They want it, I mean, you know about the Illuminati. I mean, your listeners are going to be hip to that.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Exactly. And that's why we have our audience out there that is on top of this stuff and need to bring folks like you out there to confirm some of these things. Now, one last thing here, Tina Foster. What makes Tina Foster so interested in Paul McCartney and finding out the truth here?
Well, I do think I have a past life connection to him.
Really?
Yes, I do. Because, like we were saying, that I have so many weird coincidences that are a little bit more than just. It seems more than just like one or two. I mean, it's like 20 just weird connections.
Synchronicities and connections.
Yeah.
So you have a feeling then, it sounds to me, that you are almost compelled to vindicate the original Paul and get the truth out, it sounds like.
It's my job. Like, that's my purpose in life. Like, I mean, I have to do it. And, I never set out to get on the radio, and it just sort of, I don't know, I just became like a spokesperson for it. But
Yes, you did. And again, let's one last time tell folks about your blog and give them an idea of where to look for your book when it comes out.
Okay, so my blog is plasticmaca.blogspot.com. And my book will be Plastic Maca, The Secret Death and Replacement of Beatle Paul McCartney. And it will be on Amazon, and it will be on the blog everywhere. Like, you won't be able to miss it, because I will shamelessly promote it on Facebook and on the blog and on our Paranormal Lawyer show.
And you might want to put it in a package and give it to someone just in case, right?